The gossip spread like wildfire through every cubicle, every corner, every whispered conversation in the break room. I stood at my desk, hands trembling slightly as I shuffled through meaningless papers, trying desperately to look busy while my entire world crumbled around me. People weren't even being subtle anymore. They stared. They pointed. Some smirked with barely concealed amusement while others looked at me with genuine pity, like I was a dead man walking. And maybe I was, because what I'd done wasn't just a mistake, it was career suicide. I'd called Nathaniel Grayson, the CEO of Sterling & Cross Financial, by his first name, not Mr. Grayson, not Sir, just Nate, in front of the entire executive board during the quarterly presentation. The memory replayed in my mind like a horror film I couldn't stop watching. I'd been presenting the market analysis, nerves already eating me alive because it was my first major presentation since joining the company 2 months ago. Everything was going smoothly until I needed to reference a data point from his slide. Without thinking, my mouth opened and out came, as Nate mentioned in the previous quarter, the room went silent, not the comfortable kind of silence, but the suffocating atmospheric pressure change kind that makes your ears ring. Every single person in that conference room turned to look at me, then at him, then back at me. I froze mid-sentence, my brain finally catching up to what my stupid mouth had just done. But here's the thing that made it worse, so much worse than just embarrassment. Nathaniel Grayson didn't explode. He didn't reprimand me. He didn't even frown. Instead, something flickered across his face. Something I couldn't identify at the time but that haunted me afterward. His steel gray eyes locked onto mine, and the corner of his mouth lifted. Just barely. Just enough for me to notice. It wasn't quite a smile, but it wasn't neutral either. It was interest, curiosity. Like I'd done something unexpected that somehow pleased him. Then he simply nodded and said, "Continue with your presentation, Hayes." His voice was calm, measured, giving nothing away. I somehow stumbled through the rest of my presentation, though I couldn't remember a single word I said afterward. When it ended, people filed out quickly, throwing glances my way. Some sympathetic, others gleeful at witnessing what they assumed would be my imminent firing. My team lead Marcus caught my elbow in the hallway. "Carter, man, what the hell was that?" he hissed, pulling me aside. His eyes were wide with concern mixed with second-hand panic. "You know Grayson's reputation, right? He's ice cold. Nobody uses his first name. Ever. The last person who tried was an intern who thought they were being friendly, and they got a formal written warning from HR within an hour." My stomach dropped to my feet. It just slipped out. I wasn't thinking. I was nervous, and Marcus shook his head, running a hand through his hair. "Look, I like you, Carter. You're good at what you do. But this might be the kind of mistake you don't come back from. Grayson doesn't do casual. He doesn't do friendly. He maintains strict professional boundaries with everyone." He squeezed my shoulder. "Start updating your resume just in case." The rest of the day passed in agonizing slow motion. I kept expecting an email from HR, a call to someone's office, security escorting me out with a cardboard box of my belongings. But nothing came. Just silence. Deafening, nerve-wracking silence. By 5 o'clock I was a wreck. My palms were sweaty, my shirt collar felt too tight, and I'd chewed my bottom lip raw. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the parking garage, desperate to escape and process what had happened in the privacy of my apartment. The evening air hit my face as I stepped outside, and I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing thoughts. That's when I heard it. The low purr of an expensive engine. I turned and my blood ran cold. A sleek black Mercedes pulled up directly in front of me, blocking my path. The driver's window rolled down with a quiet mechanical hum. Nathaniel Grayson sat behind the wheel, looking infuriatingly composed in his perfectly tailored charcoal suit. His eyes found mine, and that same unreadable expression from the conference room was back. "Get in," he said. Not a request. A command delivered in that smooth, controlled voice that made people jump to obey. My mouth went dry. "Mr. Grayson, I can explain about today. I didn't mean—" "I'm not asking twice, Hayes." His tone remained calm, but there was steel underneath it. Authority that didn't need to be loud to be absolute. Every instinct screamed at me to run. but my feet carried me to the passenger side. I opened the door and slid into the leather seat, my heart hammering so hard I was sure he could hear it. The car interior smelled expensive. Leather, subtle cologne, and something else I couldn't identify. He pulled back into traffic with smooth precision, saying nothing. The silence stretched between us like a rubber band about to snap. "Where are we going?" I finally managed to ask, my voice coming out smaller than I intended. "Somewhere we can talk without an audience," he replied, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. His profile was all sharp angles and controlled power. Everything about him screamed control, from the way his hands gripped the steering wheel to the set of his jaw. We drove for maybe 10 minutes before he pulled into a small upscale cafe tucked away on a quiet street. The kind of place that probably cost more for a coffee than I spent on lunch. He parked, got out, and waited for me to follow. Inside, the cafe was nearly empty. Soft jazz played in the background and the lighting was warm and intimate. He chose a corner table, away from the few other patrons, and sat down with the kind of natural grace that came from being completely comfortable in any environment. A server appeared immediately, and he ordered 2 coffees without asking what I wanted. When we were alone again, he leaned back in his chair and studied me. Really studied me. Those gray eyes swept over my face like he was reading a book written in a language only he understood. "Do you know why I brought you here, Carter?" he asked, using my first name deliberately. Hearing it from him sent an odd shiver down my spine. I swallowed hard. "To fire me in private?" He made a sound that might have been amusement. "If I wanted to fire you, I would have done it through proper channels. This is something else." He paused as the server brought our coffees. He took a sip, never breaking eye contact. "What happened today was unprecedented. Nobody in this company has ever addressed me so casually. Some have tried to be friendly, attempted familiarity, but it always feels calculated, political." He set his cup down carefully. "But you? That was genuine. An accident, as you said. And do you know what I found interesting about that? I couldn't speak, could barely breathe. It means you weren't thinking of me as the CEO in that moment. You were focused on your work, on the data, on getting your point across. And in that split second, you treated me like a colleague, like a person." Something in his expression softened, just fractionally. "That hasn't happened in 3 years. The weight of his words settled over me, and I didn't know what to say. Was this good? Bad? I couldn't tell. "I'm sorry," I offered weakly. "Don't be," he said, and there was something almost warm in his tone now. It was refreshing, honest, and it told me something important about you, Carter Hayes. He leaned forward slightly. "Starting tomorrow, you're going to be my shadow analyst. You'll report directly to me, attend my meetings, work on my projects. Consider it a promotion." My jaw literally dropped. "What? But I'm junior level. I've only been here 2 months. I don't—" "You don't what? Deserve it?" He tilted his head slightly. "Let me be clear. This isn't favoritism. This is me recognizing potential when I see it. Your presentation today, despite the unconventional moment, was solid. You have good instincts, and I need someone on my team who isn't afraid of me." "I am afraid of you," I admitted before I could stop myself. He smiled then, a real smile that transformed his entire face, making him look younger, more approachable, devastatingly attractive. "Good. A little fear keeps people sharp, but not so much that you can't function. We'll see how you handle the pressure." He stood, signaling the conversation was over. "Be at my office tomorrow at 8. Don't be late." He left money on the table and walked out, leaving me sitting there in stunned silence, my untouched coffee growing cold in front of me. What just happened? One accidental slip of the tongue had somehow turned into the opportunity of a lifetime, or possibly the beginning of my downfall. I wasn't sure which yet. The next morning, I arrived at the executive floor at 7:45, too anxious to risk being even a minute late. The executive suite was different from the regular office floors. Everything was quieter, more refined, thick carpet muffled footsteps, and the air itself seemed to carry a weight of importance. I approached Nathaniel's office, where his assistant sat at a pristine desk that looked like it had never seen a stray paperclip. She was in her early 30s, blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun, wearing an expression that suggested she'd perfected the art of intimidation through a single look. Her nameplate read Jennifer Costa. She glanced up as I approached and her eyes narrowed slightly. "You must be Carter Hayes," she said, her tone crisp and professional but with an undertone I couldn't quite place. Disapproval? Curiosity? Both? I nodded, suddenly feeling like I was back in the principal's office. "Yes, I'm here to—" "I know why you're here," she interrupted smoothly. "The entire building knows. You're the one who called him Nate." She said his name like it was a forbidden word, and I felt my face flush hot. "That was a mistake. I didn't mean—" "Of course you didn't." Her smile was thin, not reaching her eyes. "Yet here you are, getting a direct promotion to shadow analyst. Funny how mistakes work out for some people." Before I could respond, the office door opened, and Nathaniel appeared. He wore a black turtleneck and tailored gray slacks, looking more like a tech billionaire than a traditional finance CEO. The casual elegance somehow made him more intimidating, not less. "Hayes, you're early," he observed, then shifted his gaze to Jennifer. "Hold my calls until 10. No interruptions unless it's urgent." He looked back at me. "Come in." I followed him into his office, acutely aware of Jennifer's eyes burning into my back. His office was exactly what I expected. Modern, minimalist, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the city skyline. A massive desk dominated the space, its surface organized with almost military precision. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Sit." I sat. He moved behind his desk, pulling out a thick manila folder that made my stomach drop. It had to be at least 300 pages. He slid it across to me. "This is the Westbrook merger case. I need you to review it and give me a comprehensive summary. You have 1 hour. 1 hour? I stared at the folder like it might bite me. "Sir, this looks like it would normally take 2 days with proper analysis." "Yes," he finished for me, settling into his chair with the ease of someone completely in control. "But we don't always have the luxury of time in this business. I need to know if you can think on your feet, process information quickly, and identify what matters. Start now." His laptop opened and he began typing, effectively dismissing me while simultaneously making it clear he'd be watching my every move. I opened the folder with trembling fingers and forced myself to focus. The first few pages were dense financial projections. I grabbed a notepad from my bag and started making notes, highlighting key figures, looking for patterns and red flags. My mind kicked into high gear, sorting through columns of numbers and legal jargon, trying to extract the essential information. The office was silent except for the soft clicking of his keyboard and the rustle of papers as I worked. I could feel his presence like a physical weight, even when I wasn't looking at him. Time seemed to both crawl and race. When exactly 60 minutes had passed, he closed his laptop with a decisive click. "Time's up. What have you got?" My throat went dry, but I looked down at my notes and began. "The merger presents significant growth opportunity, projected revenue increase of 34% over 5 years. However, there are 3 major risk factors. First, Westbrook has outstanding litigation that could affect valuation. Second, their European division has been hemorrhaging money for 18 months. Third, cultural integration will be challenging given the significant difference in management styles." I continued, walking through financial projections, stakeholder concerns, and potential obstacles. Nathaniel listened without interruption, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he leaned back, studying me. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. "You missed 2 critical points," he said finally. "The regulatory hurdles in the Asian market, and Westbrook's dependency on a single major client that represents 40% of their revenue. Either one could tank the entire deal." My heart sank. Of course I'd missed something. "However," he continued, and I looked up sharply, "given the time constraint and the volume of information, your analysis was impressively thorough. You identified the primary concerns and articulated them clearly. Most people would have panicked or given me surface-level observations. You actually thought about it." Was that praise coming from Nathaniel Grayson? He stood and moved to a whiteboard on the side wall. "Let me show you what you missed and why it matters." For the next 30 minutes he walked me through the complexities I'd overlooked, explaining not just the what but the why and how. His teaching style was direct, almost brutally honest, but incredibly effective. He didn't coddle or sugarcoat, but he also didn't belittle. He simply presented information and expected me to keep up. I found myself leaning forward, genuinely engaged, asking questions, pushing back on certain points. And he seemed to enjoy it. The corners of his mouth would quirk slightly when I made a good observation, and his eyes lit up when I challenged one of his assumptions with a valid counterpoint. We worked through case studies and scenarios until my stomach growled loudly, breaking the intense focus. I froze, mortified, but Nathaniel just checked his watch. "It's past 1. We should eat." He didn't wait for my response, just grabbed his phone and made a call. 20 minutes later, food arrived, expensive sandwiches from some place I'd never heard of, along with drinks and fresh fruit. He cleared a space on his desk and we ate while continuing to discuss the merger. "Why did you apply here?" he asked suddenly, between bites. The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" Sterling and cross. "Why this company specifically? Your qualifications are good. You could have gone anywhere. Why here?" I set down my sandwich, thinking about how to answer honestly without sounding naive. "Reputation, partly. You're known for aggressive but smart growth. You take calculated risks that pay off. I wanted to learn from that, from someone who understands that standing still is the same as moving backward." Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, maybe. And the other part? I hesitated, then figured I had nothing to lose. I wanted to prove something. To myself, mainly. That I can handle high pressure, high stakes. That I'm not just competent, I'm exceptional. Or at least I can be. He was quiet for a moment, and I worried I'd said too much. Sounded too arrogant. But then he nodded slowly. "I understand that drive. The need to prove yourself, especially when others doubt you." There was something in his tone, something almost vulnerable, that made me look at him more closely. For just a second the CEO mask slipped, and I saw someone who'd fought his own battles to get where he was. The moment passed quickly. He gathered the food containers, disposing of them efficiently, then returned to his desk. "We'll continue tomorrow, same time. And Hayes?" I stood gathering my things. "Yes, sir?" "When we're working alone like this," he paused, and those gray eyes met mine with unexpected intensity. "Nate is fine." My heart skipped several beats. What? You heard me?" His expression remained neutral, but there was something in his voice. An invitation. A test. A boundary being deliberately blurred. "I'll see you tomorrow." I left his office in a daze, and Jennifer watched me with an expression that clearly said she knew something significant had just happened, even if she didn't know exactly what. As I rode the elevator down, I replayed the day in my mind. The intense work, the unexpected praise, the personal questions, and that final statement. "When we're alone, Nate is fine." What was happening here? This wasn't normal boss-employee dynamic. This felt like something else entirely. Something I couldn't quite name but that made my pulse race and my thoughts scatter. I stepped out into the afternoon sunlight, and my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. "Hello, Carter. It's Nate." The sound of his voice in my ear, more intimate somehow over the phone than in person, made me stop walking. "Is something wrong? Did I forget something?" "No," he said, and I could hear city sounds in the background. He was probably in his car. "I wanted to make sure you got home safely, and to tell you, you did well today. Better than I expected." I didn't know what to say. CEOs didn't call junior analysts to check on them. They didn't give personal encouragement. "Thank you." Thank you. "Rest tonight. Tomorrow will be harder." There was a pause, and I thought he might say something else. But instead the line went dead. I stood there on the sidewalk, phone still pressed to my ear, while people flowed around me like water around a stone. What was I getting myself into? The pattern established itself quickly over the following week, becoming something I both anticipated and dreaded in equal measure. Every morning at 8, I'd arrive at Nathaniel's office. We'd work through complex cases, attend high-level meetings where I mostly observed and took notes, and engage in discussions that pushed my analytical abilities to their absolute limit. He was demanding, exacting, sometimes frustratingly cryptic in his expectations. But he was also the best teacher I'd ever had, drawing out insights I didn't know I possessed. What surprised me most wasn't the work itself, It was everything else. The way he'd sometimes share observations about board members that were wickedly perceptive and almost funny. The way he'd absently loosen his tie during long strategy sessions. That small gesture of casualness somehow making him more human. The way he listened when I spoke, giving me his complete attention like my words actually mattered. Thursday evening we were preparing for a crucial presentation to potential investors. The office building had mostly emptied, leaving just us and the cleaning crew working their way through the floors. We'd been at it for hours, perfecting slides, rehearsing talking points, anticipating questions. I was typing up revisions when suddenly everything went dark. Complete darkness. The hum of computers and air conditioning cut off abruptly, leaving only silence. Perfect timing. Nathaniel's voice came from across the desk, dry with sarcasm. Emergency lights flickered on a moment later, bathing everything in an eerie dim glow. I could see his silhouette, but his face was mostly shadow. Power outage. Backup generator should kick in soon. How soon? I asked, saving my work on my laptop before the battery died. 10 minutes, maybe 15. I heard him stand, move toward the windows. The city lights outside provided some illumination, enough that I could make out his profile against the glass. We could take a break anyway. We've been at this for 6 hours straight. I joined him at the window, maintaining a respectful distance but drawn to the view. From 40 stories up, the city looked like a scattered constellation of lights. Beautiful and vast and slightly intimidating. Can I ask you something? The words came out before I could reconsider. That depends on the question. But his tone wasn't discouraging. How did you end up here? Running this company at 30. That's incredibly young for a CEO, especially at a firm this size. The silence stretched long enough that I thought he wouldn't answer. Then quietly, it wasn't the plan. My father built Sterling and Cross from nothing. Spent 40 years making it what it is. When I was 26, finishing my MBA, he had a massive heart attack. Survived, but the damage was severe. He couldn't continue leading the company. He turned slightly, though I still couldn't see his expression clearly. The board wanted to bring in an outside CEO, someone experienced, proven. My father insisted it should be me. We fought about it. I told him I wasn't ready. He said nobody ever feels ready for the important things. I heard him take a breath, so I took over. And every single day for the past 3 years has felt like a test I'm barely passing. Like everyone's waiting for me to fail so they can say they knew I wasn't qualified. The vulnerability in his admission stunned me. This was so far from his usual controlled demeanor. But you haven't failed, I said softly. The company's grown under your leadership. Everyone knows that. Numbers on a spreadsheet don't tell the whole story, Carter. They don't show the loneliness, the constant second-guessing. The way every friendship becomes transactional because people always want something. He turned to face me fully, and in the dim emergency lighting, his features looked softer, more exposed. When you're the person at the top, everyone either fears you or tries to use you. Real connection becomes impossible. My chest tightened with unexpected emotion. That sounds incredibly isolating. It is, he admitted. Until recently, I'd accepted it as the price of this position. The way he said "until recently" made my pulse quicken. Before I could process that, I found myself sharing. I'm lonely too. Different reasons, but I moved here 8 months ago. New city, no connections. Everyone from college went different directions. My family is 2,000 miles away. I threw myself into work because it was easier than admitting I'd spent most nights alone in my apartment, wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. What made you move here if you'd be alone? Opportunity. The chance to become who I want to be without the weight of everyone's expectation. To succeed or fail on my own terms. I laughed softly, bitterly. Turns out loneliness follows you no matter where you go. Yes, he said, and the single word carried so much understanding that I felt tears prick my eyes. It does. The lights suddenly blazed back to life, bright and jarring after the darkness. We both blinked, the moment shattering like glass. Nathaniel cleared his throat, his professional mask sliding back into place with practiced ease. We should wrap up. It's late. But something had shifted. Some invisible line had been crossed in that darkness, in those admissions. As I gathered my things, he spoke again. Carter. What we talked about just now stays between us, I finished, meeting his eyes. I understand, he nodded, but there was gratitude in his expression. Trust. The following evening was the company's annual gala, a black tie affair that I'd been dreading since receiving the invitation. I didn't own a proper tuxedo, couldn't afford to rent one, and the idea of making small talk with senior executives while balancing a drink made my anxiety spike. But attendance was mandatory, especially for me now. I showed up in my best dark suit, which looked painfully inadequate compared to the sea of designer formal wear. The venue was stunning, a historic hotel ballroom with crystal chandeliers and a live orchestra. I grabbed a glass of champagne I had no intention of drinking and tried to blend into the background. Then Nathaniel arrived, and every conversation in the room seemed to pause. He wore a perfectly tailored black tuxedo that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. His presence commanded attention without effort, and I watched people gravitate toward him, eager for even a moment of his time. Our eyes met across the room. He gave me an almost imperceptible nod before being swept up by a group of board members. I made my way toward the bar, needing something to do with my hands, when a voice behind me made me freeze. "So you're the flavor of the month." I turned to find a senior executive named Daniel Rodriguez, drink in hand, smirk on face. 3 other executives flanked him, all watching me with expressions ranging from amusement to contempt. "Excuse me?" I kept my voice level despite my racing heart. "Come on, Hayes. Everyone's talking about it. Fresh-faced kid gets special treatment from the CEO after one little meeting. We all know how these things work." The implication was clear and insulting. "You don't know anything about how I got this position," I said coldly. "Oh, I think we do," one of the others chimed in, and they all laughed. Before I could respond, before I could even process the humiliation burning through me, a voice cut through their laughter like ice. "Gentlemen, is there a problem?" Nathaniel had appeared beside me, and the temperature in our little corner of the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Daniel's smirk faltered. "Mr. Grayson, we were just what?" Nathaniel's tone could have stripped paint, making unfounded implications about my hiring decisions, questioning my professional judgment, or perhaps engaging in workplace harassment. The executives paled. "No, sir. We were only demonstrating why some people remain in middle management despite decades of service." Nathaniel finished. "Carter Hayes earned his position through merit. Something you'd understand if you spent more time on performance and less on office politics. Do I make myself clear?" They mumbled hasty agreements and scattered. I stood there shaken, aware that people were watching. Nathaniel turned to me, his expression softening slightly. "Ignore them. They're led by talent they don't possess. I don't want to cause problems for you," I said quietly. "Problems?" He almost smiled. "Carter, those men are irrelevant. What matters is capability and results. You have both. That's why you're working with me, and that's why they're bitter." He paused, then added in a lower voice, "Let's get out of here." We left through a side entrance, and he offered to drive me home. The car ride was mostly silent, but it was comfortable. When we pulled up outside my apartment building, I moved to get out. But he spoke. "Thank you for being here tonight. And not just at the gala. These past couple weeks, working with you has been different. Good different." I turned back, and in the dim car interior, his guard was down again. "You remind me why I got into this business in the first place. Before it became about defending territory and managing egos, you still have that passion, that drive to actually do something meaningful. I learned that from watching you." I admitted, "You might feel like you're just surviving. But from where I'm sitting, you're exactly what a leader should be." Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, gratitude, something more I couldn't name. He trailed off, seeming to struggle with words. "Finally, be careful around me. I'm not good at boundaries. And you, and I what?" My voice came out barely above a whisper. "You make me want to forget they exist entirely." The confession hung between us, heavy with implication. My hand was on the door handle, but I couldn't make myself open it. Couldn't make myself leave this moment. "What if I don't want you to remember them either?" I asked. The boldest thing I'd ever said. His breath caught audibly. For several heartbeats, neither of us moved. Then his phone rang, shattering the tension. He glanced at it, jaw tightening with frustration. I have to take this. Board chairman. I nodded and got out, legs unsteady. As I walked toward my building, I heard his window lower. Carter. I turned back. Tomorrow. 8 a.m. We'll talk. It wasn't a question. I nodded and he drove away, leaving me standing there with my heart pounding and my entire world tilting on its axis. Something had fundamentally changed between us tonight, and I had no idea if that was the best or worst thing that could have happened. The following weeks blurred together in a haze of projects, deadlines, and moments that felt increasingly dangerous. Friday evening arrived with the office emptying out for the weekend, but Nathaniel had asked me to meet him on the rooftop terrace. I pushed through the heavy door and found him leaning against the railing, city lights beginning to twinkle in the dusk below us. The wind tugged at his hair, and for once he looked almost relaxed. "You wanted to see me?" I asked, joining him at the edge. He turned and there was something different in his expression tonight. Determination mixed with uncertainty. "I've been negotiating with the board about a new acquisition. High stakes, potentially transformative for the company, but risky." He paused, studying my reaction. "I want you as lead analyst on the project." My mouth fell open. Lead analyst? But I'm still junior level. There are people with years more experience. Experience isn't everything. He interrupted, his voice firm. "I've watched how you think, how you analyze problems from angles others miss. You have instinct, Carter. That matters more than tenure." He shifted closer and I could see the conviction in his eyes. "I'm willing to stake my reputation on this. On you." The weight of that statement settled over me like a physical thing. What if I fail? What if I make the wrong call and everything falls apart? "Then we fall together," he said simply. "But I don't believe that will happen. I have faith in your abilities even if you don't yet." Faith, trust. The words hung between us, heavy with meaning beyond their surface. "Why do you believe in me so much?" I asked quietly. The wind picked up and he turned to face me fully. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Because you make me feel safe." I blinked, certain I'd misheard. Safe? Yes. He stepped closer, close enough that I could see the vulnerability in his eyes. Something he never showed anyone. Like I can take off the armor I wear every day. Like I can be honest without it being used against me later. "You don't judge, Carter. You just see me." My heart hammered against my ribs. We were standing so close now that I could feel the warmth radiating from him. "Nathaniel." His phone shattered the moment, ringing with an urgency that made him grimace. He pulled it out, checked the screen, and his entire demeanor shifted back to CEO mode. "The board chairman. I have to take this." He walked away quickly, leaving me gripping the railing, trying to process what had just happened. Monday morning, I arrived to find the office atmosphere completely transformed. People spoke in hushed tones, casting nervous glances toward the executive floor. I caught Marcus by the elevator. "What's going on?" I asked. He looked uncomfortable. "Chairman showed up unannounced this morning. There's talk of an investigation. Something about complaints filed against Grayson." Ice flooded my veins. "What kind of complaints?" "Favoritism. Unprofessional conduct." Marcus hesitated. "Your name came up specifically, Carter. People are saying he's giving you opportunities you haven't earned. That there's something inappropriate happening." The words hit like physical blows. I'd brought this trouble to his door. Without thinking, I headed straight for Nathaniel's office. But Jennifer stopped me with an outstretched hand. "Meeting in progress. Do not disturb." "But I need to." "Carter, please." Her voice was sharp, almost accusatory. "You've already caused enough problems. Don't make it worse." I retreated to my desk, anxiety eating at me for hours. Finally, Nathaniel emerged from his office, his expression unreadable. He caught my eye and gestured for me to follow. We entered an empty conference room, and the moment the door closed, I started. "I'm so sorry. This is my fault. I should resign." "Stop," he said, exhaustion clear in his voice. "This isn't about you." "Not really." "Then what?" "Politics. There are board members who want me out, who think I'm too young, too unconventional. They're using you as ammunition because they know." He stopped himself. "Know what?" His jaw tightened. "That you matter to me more than any professional relationship should allow." The confession hung in the air between us, honest and terrifying and real. "I'm not going anywhere," he said firmly. "And neither are you. We'll fight this together." The investigation lasted 3 days of testimonies, document reviews, and scrutiny that left everyone on edge. Nathaniel presented evidence with cold precision. My performance metrics, project contributions, quantifiable results that proved merit over favoritism. By Friday afternoon, the board had no choice but to dismiss the complaints. When everyone finally left for the day, I found him alone in his office, tie loosened, looking more drained than I'd ever seen him. "You didn't have to fight so hard for me," I said from the doorway. He looked up, and something softened in his features. "Yes, I did. Not because you work for me, but because," he stood, crossing the distance between us. "Because I can't lose you, Carter. I won't." "This is complicated," I whispered. "Power dynamics, office politics, everything that could go wrong." "I know all the reasons this is a terrible idea," he interrupted. "I've listed them 100 times in my head, but none of them change how I feel." His hand found mine, warm and steady. "I care about you. Maybe more than I should. Definitely more than I can keep pretending I don't." My throat constricted with emotion. "I feel it too. Every day I try to convince myself it's just admiration or gratitude. But it's not. It's so much more than that." That weekend, he invited me to dinner. Not at some corporate restaurant where we might be recognized, but a small place tucked away in a quiet neighborhood. We sat across from each other, and for the first time there were no pretenses between us. "Tell me about growing up," I said. "Not the CEO origin story everyone knows. The real version." He was quiet for a moment, then began. "My childhood was lonely. Father was always working, building his empire. Mother left when I was 12, couldn't handle the isolation of being married to someone who loved business more than family." Pain flickered across his face. "I learned early that success came with sacrifice. That caring too much about people meant getting hurt." "Is that why you keep everyone at a distance?" "Kept," he corrected gently. "Past tense. You've changed that." After dinner we sat in his car in the restaurant parking lot, neither wanting the evening to end. Rain began to fall, creating a cocoon of sound around us. "Can I show you something?" he asked. "Something I've never shown anyone else." We drove to his penthouse, and he led me to a room I'd never seen before. When he opened the door, I gasped. It was an art studio. Canvases everywhere, paint tubes scattered across tables, the smell of turpentine and creativity hanging in the air. "You paint?" I asked, amazed. "When the pressure becomes too much, I come here. It's the only place I can be completely myself. No expectations or judgments." He walked to a canvas covered with a cloth. "I finished this recently." He pulled the cloth away, revealing an abstract piece dominated by deep blues and grays, turbulent and dark. But cutting through the center was a streak of gold, bright and defiant. "This represents my life," he said quietly. "The darkness, the pressure, the loneliness." His finger traced the golden line. "And this is you. The light that broke through when I'd forgotten what brightness looked like." Tears pricked my eyes. "Nathaniel," he turned to face me, cupping my face gently. "I'm terrified of this. Of us. Because if I let myself truly care and then lose you, I don't know if I'd recover." "You're not going to lose me," I promised, leaning into his touch. He kissed my forehead, tender and reverent, then pulled me into an embrace. I could hear his heartbeat, rapid and strong, matching my own. In that moment, surrounded by his art and his truth, I understood that we'd crossed a line we could never uncross. And I didn't want to go back. The next few weeks felt like living in a dream where everything finally made sense. We maintained professionalism at work, but outside those walls, we were simply two people discovering what it meant to connect with someone on every level. Then Monday arrived, and with it, everything changed. A man sat in Nathaniel's office when I arrived. Expensive suit, confident posture, and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Jennifer's expression was tight when I asked who he was. Damian Torres. An old friend of Mr. Grayson's. The board hired him as a consultant. The name hit me like ice water. This was the friend who'd betrayed Nathaniel, and now he was back. When Nathaniel called me into his office, Damian's eyes tracked me with calculating interest. "So you're the new protege?" Damien said, his tone friendly but with an edge underneath. I've heard quite a bit about you, Carter. All professional, I hope, I replied, keeping my voice neutral. Nathaniel's jaw was tight. Damien will be observing our operations for the next month. Board's decision. The words sounded like they tasted bitter. Over the following days, Damien was everywhere. Watching, listening, asking pointed questions that seemed designed to uncover more than just business operations. His attention kept landing on me and it made my skin crawl. Thursday evening, he cornered me in the parking garage. We should talk, he said, blocking my path to my car. About what? About Nathaniel. About what you're getting yourself into. He leaned against a concrete pillar, affecting casualness. I was where you are once. The special project. The extra attention. The feeling that you're different from everyone else he's worked with. I don't know what you're implying. Don't play innocent. I recognized the signs. His smile turned cold. He's brilliant at making you feel valued. Essential even. But here's what he doesn't tell you. Once you've served your purpose, once the novelty wears off, he'll move on without a second thought. I learned that the hard way. Your situation was different. You betrayed his trust. Damien laughed bitterly. Is that what he told you? That I was the villain? He stepped closer. Ask yourself this, Carter. Why would someone betray their best friend unless they'd been pushed to it? Unless they'd realized they were being used? He walked away, leaving me shaken. When Nathaniel called that evening, I couldn't hide my distress. Damien talked to you, he said, not a question. He said things about you using people, about me being just another temporary fixation. Silence stretched between us. Come to my place. Now. You deserve the whole truth. When I arrived, he was pacing his living room like a caged animal. The moment he saw me, words poured out. Damien and I were inseparable in college. When I took over the company, I brought him into my inner circle because I trusted him completely. Pain etched his features. For 6 months, he leaked confidential information to our competitors. Not for ideology or principle. For money. When I confronted him, he turned it around, claimed I'd used him as a pawn, that our friendship was just a networking opportunity. He ran a hand through his hair. Am I protective of people I care about? Yes. Do I have trust issues after being stabbed in the back? Absolutely. But Carter, he took my hands in his. What I feel for you isn't about usefulness or novelty. You've become essential to who I am, not what I do. Tears streamed down my face. I believe you, completely. He held me then and I felt his fear, his hope, his desperate need to be understood. We stood there as the city lights flickered beyond the windows, two people who'd found something worth protecting in each other. Damien tried several more times to plant seeds of doubt, but we communicated openly, honestly, refusing to let manipulation take root. Eventually, the board recognized his lack of contribution and terminated his contract. The day he left, Nathaniel took my hand on that same rooftop where everything began. I want to make this official. No more hiding. I want everyone to know you're mine. If you'll have me. Yes, I said. Always yes.